Hello everybody. This is Yoko's Anime Reactions, and let us continue where we left off on part 9. We have 109 pages done. Thule's hair ornament. One morning, several days after I stayed at the gate, Mom finally finished the dress she had been working so hard on for Thule. Fundamentally, it was a one-piece dress sewn together from unbleached cloth. The fanciest part of the dress was embroidery around the sleeves and neckline. Around its waist was a wide sash with a cool blue color that gave the dress an elegant flair. It was cute for sure, but I had memories of Japanese fashion where kids wore fancy dresses, kimonos, and just generally vibrant colors at festivals. Thule's dress felt a little lacking in comparison. So, Myne? Is it cute? Well, yes, but it'd be cuter if you added more frills and decorations. Can't afford that. I kept my thoughts to myself, though, because Mom looked full of pride, and Thule was happy. By this world's standards, the dress was surely more than good enough. Not to mention that this was a dress one wore when visiting a holy temple. Maybe a flashier dress would cause problems. I shouldn't talk about things I don't understand, and there's a lot about this world's fashion I don't understand. But there is something I think I can talk about. Her hair. Thule's hair had gotten a lot more glossy thanks to regular shampooing and care, but she always kept it up in a braid. If she planned on changing her hairstyle for the festival, a nice hair ornament would add a lot. But I needed to learn more about this stuff before I did anything. Mine was too young to have any memories of the baptism. It's cute, Thule, but what about your hair? Are you going to do anything special for the baptism? Well, I wasn't planning to. Thule, come on, it's a special occasion. You gotta mix things up a little. I slumped my head reflexively, but I shook myself out of it and continued questioning her. A hair ornament could still work with her normal braid. Well, what about a hair ornament? Are you gonna wear anything in your hair? I don't know. It'd be summer, so maybe I'll grab a flower? No way! That'd be terrible. Think about how cute your dress is. It was frowned upon for children to wear their hair completely up. Braiding was fine, and we could just make a hair ornament if she didn't have one. I could make a lace one myself. There was still time before summer. I'll make you one, Thule. Let me make you one. It'll definitely be super cute. The moment after said that, I realized I didn't have the needles I needed for sewing lace. Mom had needles for sewing wool, but they were too thick for lace. Oh no, what do I do? The only one in my family that can probably make needles from scratch was Dad. The long hair stick that Thule gave me had actually been carved down and smoothed out by Dad. He even finished it with an oil coating. I glanced to the side, checking to see what kind of mood Dad was in. Several days had passed since Otto taught me letters at the gate, but he was still in a bad mood. I doubted he would be very receptive to begging. Dad? What? You're pretty good with your hands, aren't you? You made Thule's doll, right? Well, yeah, pretty much. What, do you want a doll too? He was frowning hard to show that he was mad, but nonetheless his eyes gleamed with anticipation, and he kept glancing at me. Nuh-uh, I want sewing needles. Sewing needles? Like the kind your mom uses? Just borrow hers. Dad's face fell with disappointment the moment he heard my answer. He looked so pathetic that I wished he would at least try to act a little tougher. I want needles a lot more thin than those. I want to sew thread, not wool. Dad, I think it'd be really hard to make thin needles, but would you please make me some? I looked up at him with wet eyes, hands clasped in front of my chest as I made the cutest begging pose I could manage. I didn't know if this word understood the significance of puppy dog eyes, but fathers of all worlds and universes should be weak to their daughter's cuteness. Hopefully. My cuteness must have done the trick, as Dad stroked his stubble and fell into thought. Is wood fine? Can you make them? They need to be really thin. I'll give it a shot. Tickling his pride probably helped, as he immediately took out a few knives and began carving a chunk of wood. He was used to carving with knives and working fast. The bark of the thin branch was gone in no time, leaving just the hard inner wood. He then sliced off layer after layer of the wood while looking at Mom's thicker needles as a reference. Is this thin enough? Could you make it a little thinner? This much? That much. After carving the branches down to the proper thickness, he swapped out knives and began carving out the pointed tip. His work wasn't good enough to be that of a professional, but I for sure couldn't do it myself, so I was genuinely impressed. You're amazing, Dad. They already look like good needles. If you would just smooth them out so the thread doesn't catch on them and give them an oil finish, that'd be perfect. Leave it to me. His pride as a father must have been restored by my praise as Dad got to work, smoothing out the thin needles with an exceptionally pleased expression. Mine, it looks like Dad's all cheered up now. I'm so glad. Thule beamed the innocent smile of an angel. I nodded in return, saying, uh-huh, I'm glad too, while sweating on the inside. It's my fault he was upset in the first place. Since Dad was working hard on my needles, I started looking for thread so I could get to work as soon as they were ready. We had plenty of thread left over since Mom prepared plenty for Thule's dress. The white thread and the unbleached thread that she used, so cloth, would still be useful to her, but the colored thread she had used for the edges and the sash only had tiny snippets left over. They wouldn't be that useful. Mom, can I have the rest of the colored thread? What do you want it for? Mom, surprised that I would want thread, gave me a puzzled look. I want to try some lace work. Thule needs a hair ornament. My Japanese mother hadn't just taught me how to make baskets. She had dipped her toes in all manner of arts and crafts, taking me along for the ride. I really wish she hadn't bothered, but she was set on getting me interested in something other than books and got me wrapped up in whatever the latest craze was. Basically has just much experience with a million random things as she did. And one of those random things was lace work, which actually ended up relatively useful to me back then. I was confident that I could make a lace ornament if given the tools. My life as a Rano was over, but my past experience kept proving useful in unexpected ways. That said, since Mom had no way of knowing about my past life, she was hesitant to give me thread. She definitely thought doing so would just be a waste of good thread, given how often I've wasted things in the past. She'll only need an ornament for the baptism, you know. Why waste thread on something so frivolous? A flower is more than good enough. Thule's already cute enough as it is. If there's a way to make her cuter, it's wrong not to do it. Cuteness is justice. I clenched my fist to show my resolve, but my Mom just sighed for some reason and turned her back to me, signaling that the conversation was over. I hurriedly grabbed onto her skirt and began begging, "Please, Mom, I just need your extra thread. I want to use the needles Dad worked so hard to make for me. He's almost finished with them, please." I looked at Dad for help, hinting that the needles would be wasted without thread. He must have understood that meaning at my glance, and perhaps fearing his efforts being wasted, or perhaps fearing losing my respect, backed me up. "Effa, it's not often Myne gets interested in sewing. Why not give her some of your spare thread?" "You're right." After thinking about it for a bit, Mom reluctantly gave me the thread too short for her to do anything with. "Yay, thanks, Mom. I love you, Dad." I shot my fists into the air, showing my happiness. Dad grinned. He grinned so hard as he sped up his heated carving. I wonder if all dads act like this when their daughter's sweet to them. Well, now that he's happy, I guess it's okay if I stop worrying about him for a bit. Dad gave me the needles, packed uncomfortably full with his fatherly love, as I went and started the lacework right away. First up was making a bunch of tiny flowers. Fiddle, 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 fiddle. Lacework required tightly weaving the strands just like my failed faux pauperist did, so I needed some firm determination to succeed. But since this time I know of making tiny flowers, it only took me 15 minutes to finish one. I set the yellow flower on the table and got to work on the next one. Thule looked at the lace flower with admiration before tilting her head a bit in confusion. "Isn't it a bit small?" "The ornament is going to be lots of tiny flowers bundled together. You see, making one big flower would be a problem if I got bored halfway through, right?" Once again, I kept my thoughts to myself. I had talked big and now needed to finish the ornament for Thule no matter what. A design built around tiny flowers allowed me to duck out whenever I wanted. To tell the truth, back in my Arano days, I had given up a lot of big designs before finishing them. Predicting problems and avoiding them before they happened just made sense. I thought about making a lace ribbon, but it'd need to be long enough to tie, and it'd be a problem if I ran out of the same colored thread before it was done, so I'll just make lots of tiny little flowers. "You really thought this through, Myne." "Of course I did. I'm doing all this for you, Thule." I put my all into making a cute hair ornament for Thule as thanks for always taking care of me. Since I would be bundling together finished flowers, it wouldn't matter if I quit halfway through, ran out of thread, or needed to swap colors to keep going. No thread would be wasted. Fiddle, 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 fiddle. I felt someone looking at me after making several flowers and instinctively looked up. Mom was staring at my hands, entranced. Given that being good at sewing was a requirement for being a beauty, everyone recognized Mom as a beautiful woman. This probably led to her being interested in all sorts of sewing. She picked up the finished flowers and rolled them around in her hands. "Those don't seem too hard to make. You're so used to sewing wool and stuff, I think you'd be a lot better at making these than me if you learned how. Want to try?" I handed Mom my needles and she got to work looking at the small flowers. She would occasionally pause to fiddle with the flowers, and in no time she had finished one of her own. Wow, just what I'd expect from a sewing beauty. She learned how to make them just by looking at them. Meanwhile, it took me forever to learn, even when I being taught step by step, since I just didn't care. That's really good, Mom. I'm more impressed that you knew how to make these in the first place, Myne. I've made scarves and sweaters, but I'd never thought about making ornaments like this before. In this world where it took all one head just to stay alive, most people didn't have the leeway to worry about decorations. Nobody made hair ornaments like this, and Mom might not have ever seen any lacework in her whole life. I knew about this kind of thing since I was raised in a world where attaching decorations to one's clothes was normal, but even small little lace flowers were weird in this world. So, Myne, how will you put all these little flowers onto her head? Mom couldn't imagine what the completed product would look like from the strewn about flowers, so I gave her as simple of an explanation as I could manage. Well, we'll make a circle with these leftovers and sew each flower onto them one by one. It will look like a bouquet of flowers, right? Then we'll just stick a pin through it and... Wait, a pin? The blood drained from my face. I even let out a tiny shriek, which made Mom flinch in surprise. I cannot talk today. What's wrong, Myne? Oh no, we don't have a pin. This is big trouble. I don't think this world has pins. At the very least, I've never seen them at home. This is a world without hair scrunchies. A world bundles their hair with tiny strings. What's going to happen to my precious ornament? Dad! Explaining with words would be hard, so I took out my slate and sketched what I needed. I want a tiny hairpin, kind of like mine, except one that has a flat end with a tiny hole in it. Can you make one? Huh, that'd be easier than your needles. Really? You're amazing, Dad. I never respected anyone this much in my life. I got so emotional that I hugged Thule hard as Dad muttered to himself, I beat you, Otto. Of course. Apparently he had been secretly competing with Otto. Oh, God. Dad enthusiastically made me a tiny hairpin, so I took it and sewed the mini bouquet onto it much like one would sew on a button. Okay, done. Thule, put on your dress and sit here, please. Wearing her summer dress, Thule sat on the nearest seat to the furnace. I slid my own chair behind her and stood on top of it. After removing my shoes, I then undid Thule's braid and combed her hair and started braids on both sides. Thule's hair was fluffy and it had a natural perm, so I stopped the braids halfway through to give her a more elegant look that would be sure to stun anyone who saw her. To finish things off, I stuck the ornament pin in the crude string that was keeping the ends of her braids together. The tiny white, blue, and yellow flowers look great on her green hair. Yep, super cute. My goodness, you're adorable, Thule. You've got some good hands on you, Myne. Maybe you'll get a future working with your hands. Thule, smiling from her family's praise, turned every which way while touching her hair and the ornament. But eventually she pouted a little. Myne, you put it on the back of my head. I can't see it at all. That's true, but what can you do? I still want to know what it looks like. Our home had no mirrors, so I had no way of showing her what it looked like. I thought for a second about what I could do, and although it wasn't the best solution, Thule looked so frustrated that I undid her hair ornament and put it on myself next to my own hairpin. It looks like this. What do you think? Wow, cute. You look amazing. Mom, did I look like this too? Thule cried out with eager excitement after seeing what the ornament looked like on me. Myne braided your hair and colored the flowers to suit you, so you look even cuter, Thule. Wow. Thank you, everyone. I'm really happy. Thule broke into a ridiculously happy smile and blushed as she took the ornament off my hair. And so Thule's special outfit was completed before spring. There was no doubting that she'd be the star of this summer's baptism. Also, Mom ended up addicted to lace work, and before I knew it, the needles I had made for me were in her sewing box. Okay, let's see. How far have I gotten? 14 minutes. Okay, let's keep going. Bring me to the forest. The forest snow had started to melt and seeds were growing, so Thule told me after coming back from the forest. Kids going to the forest for gathering meant that my horrible hibernation was over. I had learned how terribly full of spare time life was without books, but never again would I suffer through that. Because now I can make clay tablets. Thule said that there was still so much snow it's hard to walk and there's not much to gather anyway, but the relative lack of plant life is no problem to me. What I want is sticky clay, and I'll find it if I dig into the ground. I want to go to the forest and make the clay tablets. As long as I can reach the forest, it's my win. Of course, I wouldn't be going to the forest alone. I needed Tuli by my side to keep an eye on me, which meant I needed to do a little more begging. Please, Tuli, I said while sliding up to her. I want to go to the forest, too. I want to be friends with everyone. Please take me with you to the forest. No way, you can't walk that far. Her response was the exact same as last time, but if I backed down, it was all over. I had to resolve her lack of trust. I've gotten a little stronger. If I can't walk that far, I'll just wait at the gate. Please. Tuli was hesitant, but I had spent every day exercising, eating carefully, walking to the well with Tuli to wash dishes, and just generally building up strength. I should be strong enough to go by now. Only if Dad says okay. Tuli gave up on shaking me off and dumped the responsibility on Dad. That was inevitable anyway, since he would need to take care of me if I had to stop at the gate. I shifted my sights to convincing Dad. Dad, can I go to the forest too? I haven't gotten any fevers lately. Good point. I had been very careful over the winter, so I only got fevers and passed out 5 times total. That's a lot less, okay? My family was really impressed. They're like, wow, that's amazing. You're doing so much better, and they mean it. Not being bedridden with fevers all the time meant that I could eat decent meals more often, which naturally meant that I ended up with more nutrition, and I started growing a bit more. I wasn't as tall as the average kid my age, but I had definitely gotten stronger. Probably. If I really can't make it, I'll just rest at the gate. Please, please. Dad fell into thought. The fact he didn't turn me down immediately like Tuli gave me hope. I kept up my attack, wanting his permission no matter what. I just need to get used to it. There are 3-year-olds that go to the forest, right? There's no way I can't go myself. I mean, that's... Would y'all be quiet? I mean, that's true, but those are the 3-year-olds so packed with energy that they rampage around the house. Their parents are basically kicking them out, right? So I can go to the forest if I throw a tantrum? No need for that, don't be dumb. I was desperate to get Dad's permission because once spring came, Mom would start working again, which meant that I would need to go to Gerda's place for babysitting again. Oh no, that place was horrible for me, mentally and emotionally. I hated it there. I'd avoid going there again at any cost. I didn't want to see any kids getting neglected. Dad, you're worried about me not being strong enough, right? Well, what can I do then? What will make you willing to let me go? Good question. Dad closed his eyes to think. I waited patiently for his answer. Stop at the gate for now. At the gate? How long is for now? Until you can walk to it on your own. You can go to the forest once you can keep up with everyone. In other words, he wasn't letting me go to the forest that easily. I get the feeling that the clay tablets on my dreams had gotten a little further away, but getting strong enough to walk to the gate on my own was absolutely necessary for Dad to trust me, despite my history of weakness. Well, it's not going to be going to the forest, but at least this way I don't have to go to Miss Gerda's. Okay, that works for me, Dad. I nodded and saw that Dad's expression soften with relief. He probably thought that if I had refused, I actually would have thrown a tantrum. Hey, Dad, does this mean I'll be walking home after reaching the gate? No, you can stay and have Otto teach you letters. Wait, really? Dad got that jealous over Otto teaching me letters, and now he doesn't mind at all? What in the world happened to him? I tilted my head in confusion as Dad furrowed his brows a little. Your body's weak, Myne. But Otto said you're smart. He said you have no problems getting a job that uses your head. The best thing I could do is let him teach you letters. The more you know, the easier that'll be. Otto had understood my muscle-head father's love for his daughters and gave him the perfect argument to convince him. I was so grateful that I could almost cry. I hadn't expected at all that he would officially let Otto be my teacher. I was thinking you'd be a good fit for a job that uses your hands, but Otto told me jobs that take smarts pay better and they'd be easier on your body. Jobs that take smarts? What kind of jobs are those? I couldn't imagine the kind of jobs there would be for this world for smart people. Were there really any jobs where I could just use my head? Well, he said there are people that write paperwork for administrators and nobles. You could do that at home when you're feeling unwell, no problem. Writing paperwork for others, that was probably similar to a paralegal back in Japan. That was definitely the kind of job I could do at home as long as I was qualified. Though I had no idea what getting qualified would imply. I was a soldier, but he used to be a traveling merchant. He still got some connections to the merchant's guild. Your brother and I can't introduce you to many jobs that you'd be good at. So don't waste what you have with Otto. Dad sure has gotten mature about this, huh? Thanks, Dad. I'll do my best. As Dad ruffled my hair, I turned to look at Tuli. Tuli, will you help? You won't make it. Tuli shook her head. She also took good care of me as her little sister, helped me with whatever I needed, but she wouldn't budge on taking me to the forest. Dad seemed like he was on Tuli's side there, so he just nodded gravely. I know she won't. Not now, but Myne's the one who will suffer if she can't make it to the forest. That's true, but she'll get in the way. She will. Right now, she's a burden on everyone. Both Tuli and Dad consider me a burden, dead weight. I knew it was true, but hearing them say it right in front of me really did hurt. She needs to get strong enough to walk as fast as everyone else first. Until then, she'll stop at the gate. I'll walk with her until she can reach the gate. Once she gets strong enough for that, I want your help, Thule. In that case, I'll do my best. Thule, with her strong sense of responsibility, gave a big nod. But I just slumped my shoulders. My family had utterly no faith in my strength whatsoever, just like always. I can't believe they think I won't even make it to the gate. Don't they know I barely get out of breath walking to the well now? Sheesh. The next day, I went to the gate with Dad in the late morning when the sun was already high up. I could only go to the gate with him when he had noon duty. There were 2 shifts at the gate: morning duty from the opening of the gates to noon, noon duty from noon to the closing of the gates, and night duty. No, there were 3 shifts, sorry.
Can I return the phone?
You just gave him the phone, Jackson.
I'm not sure.
You have had the phone for an hour before. He has to have it for an hour.
What? No. I did not get on it.
Actually, you were on it for more than an hour, because I think I gave it to you at 7. You had it at 7:30, and then you finally gave it to Wyatt around 9 o'clock.
No, I didn't know. I gave them to it. I'm really saying.
Yes, it was not, because you kept... No, it was not 8:30.
Yes, it was.
It was later than that. I know that for a fact.
But I wasn't turning.
No!
But that'll take long.
Get out!
God.
Get out!
Get
the fuck out of my room.
Out! I'm gonna turn.
Get out!
I'm turning now. That's not.
No, it's not.
That's it.
He has had 30 minutes on it. God. Anyway, and night duty from the closing of the gate to the opening of the gates. Until I could walk to the gate on my own, I would need to walk with Dad on the way there, and then, depending on my health, either wait for Thule to come back from the forest or wait for Dad to finish work so I could go home with him.
Can I watch your phone?
No!
That's not fair.
I don't care. I don't have to give you my phone, and my phone is still charging. Now leave me alone.
Oh, give me a dart.
No!
Give me
I fucking hate this so much. Y'all are getting too dependent on those phones. Don't push yourself too hard, sweetie. Keep a close eye on Myne, Gunter. Yeah, of course. Let's go, Myne. Bye-bye. I waved Mom goodbye as she looked on with worry and then held hands with Dad as we walked to the gate. I had built up enough strength that I didn't need to rest as soon as we reached the bottom of the stairs, and by the time we reached the main street, I was already a little out of breath. You know, now that I think about it, I never walked to the gate on my own before. Someone's always carried me on their back or shoulders, not to mention the cart. Feeling all right, Myne? I'm still... Okay. If I gave in too soon, he might never let me go to the forest for the rest of my life. I said I was still okay to avoid that, but I really wasn't okay at all. My body felt so heavy I wanted to just slump onto the ground. You don't look okay at all, you know. Up you go. Dad let it aside and lifted me up. In moments, I was leaning against him and breathing heavily in exhaustion. I can't do it. I'm gonna die. My family was right. I could never make it to the forest like this. Hey, Dad, Otto's gonna be teaching me letters now, but is it really okay for me to take that much of his time? What about his own work? Otto worked as a guard. No matter how you looked at it, teaching me to read had nothing to do with his job. We have 5 apprentices that finished their spring baptisms. Part of Otto's job was to teach them to read. It was important for a guard to be at least somewhat literate. If they couldn't read or write the names of people and their jobs, they couldn't do their job properly. So he's going to teach me with them? Yeah, pretty much. But you're not gonna participate as an apprentice guard. You're Otto's assistant. Assistant? Is that really gonna work with a kid like me? There's no getting around the fact that I look like a 3-year-old girl. I don't think anyone would buy that I'm Otto's assistant. Myne, you helped Otto with his work, didn't you? Well, with the budget reports and stuff. But all I did was a little math. I could only help Otto once. He had mentioned swallowing his pride, so I thought it best not to spread the word, and thus didn't tell Dad about it. But it seems that Otto did report it, under fear of getting reprimanded otherwise. Yeah, Otto's been saying for a long time that work's too much for him to handle alone, but nobody has been good enough at math to help. He himself said that he wants to teach you letters and make you his assistant. I had asked to learn letters in return for helping him with work, but it looks like he wasn't joking when he said he wanted me to be his assistant. I'm with the apprentices that Dad mentioned. Myne is the daughter of my captain, and she's been helping me with my paperwork. She'll be joining you 5 and learning to read. No teasing her or anything like that. Otto introduced me in a very teacher-like fashion and began class. He began writing the fundamental letters of the alphabet on a big slate board. Learning to read would be impossible without memorizing all of them. First, learn all of these letters. He started today by writing 5 of the 35 letters while pronouncing them. I had learned some of them before, so it wasn't too hard to memorize them. You sure are a fast learner, Myne. I like this kind of thing more than physical stuff, so... Unlike nearly all the children in this world, I was used to studying. Having no resistance towards active studying was the key to learning things quickly. In my opinion. As the saying goes, if you love your work will love you. I honestly felt bad for the 5 apprentices who were holding a pen the first time in their life and had to get used to the simple act of writing before anything. Mr. Otto, I think we've studied letters enough for today, I declared. Upon hearing that, Otto turned around with his eyes wide open in surprise. What, already? My gut told me that only about 30 minutes had passed since starting, but these were long, painful minutes for the boys around me. They were already starting to move around in their seats, fidgeting, proof that they had gotten bored. It's not reasonable to expect people who have never held a pen before to concentrate for long periods of time. After having them study letters for a bit, switch to math. Have them sketch maps of the city, teach them the moral code of study guards and what rules they'll have to follow. Mix in some exercise. If you cover a lot of different topics in one day, they'll learn and remember things better. Otto looked at me with a shocked expression. Really, though, the lessons one could learn from elementary school scheduling applied here, especially given their age. Think about spending an entire day learning hiragana in class or any other kind of alphabet. No elementary schooler I knew could bear that. Doubly so when it came to the kids of this world who weren't very used to sitting down for long. Let's move on to math. You could start by counting the numbers. Thanks to how they'd gone shopping before, each of them could count up to 10. But a few of them seemed a little shaky on some of the numbers, so Otto said the numbers out loud while writing 1 through 5 on the slate. Once the kids got antsy again, I suggested we stop with math and move on to exercising to blow off steam. I think that's enough studying for today, Mr. Otto. Directing the classroom in the form of giving advice to Otto, I let the kids go early. Be sure to memorize all the letters and numbers we discussed today. If you don't, you'll end up behind, and it'll take a lot of extra studying to catch back up. Memorizing letters and numbers is a very important part of your job. The children cheered at the early dismissal and left the room. Otto, looking confused, steadily developed a sour expression as he watched them go. Myne, seriously, they'll never learn if we go easy on them. But if they start associating studying with immiserable boredom, it'll just take longer for them to learn. A pace like today's is ultimately for the best. You really shouldn't compare them to me. Ah, right. Otto, noticing that he had been subconsciously comparing the boys to me, awkwardly scratched his head. Plus, it's still their responsibility to memorize the letters, so I don't think this is going easy on them. Hang on. Stupid thing. True, self-responsibility is rough for little kids, just starting work. Otto gave me a confident smile as I smiled back while letting in a quiet sigh. I had said all that based on my experience from my Arano days, but really, who knew how right it all was? Otto now returned to the night watch's room so he could use the rest of the time to give me a personal lesson. I had him write some words on the slate, which I then practiced writing myself. Meanwhile, he started his paperwork. Otto, okay, it looks like you have a good grasp on your letters. I think now is a good time to start teaching you words. I'll start with ones we use all the time. And so, since I mastered the alphabet, Otto started to teach me words. But all the words he taught me had to do with provisions and other things related to the work of a city guard. He really was fully intending for me to help him with his paperwork. I got the feeling that the moment I had a usable sense of literacy, he wouldn't even wait for next year's budget season before putting me to work. I mean, the first words and phrases he taught me were person inquiry, noble, letter of introduction, and written petition. Does he think I'll ever use these in my day-to-day life? If he would at least start with the list of provisions from the budget, I could learn some kind of useful words like the names of food, plants, and equipment. Dad came looking for me while I was in the middle of writing on my slate. The gate was just about to close, and meant Tuli and the others had returned from the forest. I put my slate in my bag and went home with them. Let's go home, Myne. The other kids carrying baskets and various tools and other things for gathering stared at me in my single tote bag. What, Myne? That's Tuli's little sister. I'd never seen her before. The unrestrained stares of the somewhat dirty children made me reflexively hide behind Tuli. Well, there's no helping that. Myne doesn't go outside too much. Apparently, past Myne had barely ever participated in neighborhood social events, so the local children considered her something of a rare monster with a low encounter rate. Tuli comforted me by saying, they're not bullying you, they're just looking. But it didn't really help. You walking back home with us, Myne? Let's. Sincerely relieved to see a familiar face, I looked around to see if Ralph was there too. But I couldn't see him anywhere, despite how much his tall stature and red hair should have stuck out. Huh? Where's Ralph today? Is he sick? Ralph turned 7 this spring. He's at work today. Wow. Ralph wasn't even 7 when I met him, huh? I didn't know him from past Myne's memories, but he was so tall and considerate that I just assumed he was 8 or 9. Wait, is it just me, or did Lutz get a lot taller than the winter too? I have to look up a bit more to see his eyes now, I think. With those thoughts in mind, I started walking home. The other kids sped up naturally, like wanting to get home as soon as possible to unload their stuff. They're just about to leave me behind, but Tuli and Lutz backed me up. Don't rush, everyone. You okay, Myne? I was trying to walk as fast as I could, but the group kept getting ahead of me. Children were merciless. They wouldn't wait for me. I was just too slow. They're so fast. Sorry, Lutz, would you take care of Myne for me? I need to go watch over everyone. Tuli had become the oldest of the pre-baptized children, so she found it necessary to prioritize them over me, especially if Lutz could watch over me. All right, take it slow, Myne. I won't be able to carry you right now if you pass out. Lutz was the only one to stay behind with me and walk slowly. I didn't want to eat even more of a burden on him, so I gladly followed his advice and slowed down. What were you doing at the gate, Myne? Learning my letters. Letters? You can write? Lutz looked at me with utter shock. I got the feeling his eyes were shining with respect and admiration for me, but I didn't know enough words to really say that I could write. His admiration was just kind of making me feel awkward. I could still barely write my own name. I'm still practicing. Holy cow, Myne, you can write your own name? That's awesome. He looks even more impressed now somehow. I really didn't think anyone could get this impressed by me being able to write my own name. But thinking about it, I remember Otto mentioning that in a rural village, only the town chief would know how to read and write, and the dad was pretty amazing just being able to write his names. I'd looked down on him thinking that it was obvious to be able to do that much, but in truth I should have been impressed. I now understand just how important being able to help with paperwork really is, which explained why Otto was more invested in teaching me rather than his fellow soldiers. Someone satisfied with just writing names would never be able to help with paperwork. You okay, Myne? Learning letters was simple for me, but building strength was something else entirely. Whether I liked it or not, I had to recognize here that everyone had their own strengths and weaknesses. By the time I reached home with the worried Lutz by my side, I was so tired I couldn't even talk. As expected, I caught a fever and ended up in bed for 2 days. Goodness gracious, I told you not to push yourself. Mom was peeved, but I really had gotten stronger. A fever that normally would have knocked me off for commission for 5 days only lasted 2. By the 3rd, I was up and about. Oh my god, not again. I walked to the gate with Dad, ended up tired out halfway through, and got carried the rest of the way. From now onwards, I studied reading and writing, plus helped Otto with his calculations. I walked home with the others, but soon ended up left behind and out of breath with Lutz beside me, worried. When I got home, I ended up in bed. That routine repeated for about a month, but I was unmistakably building up strength. At first I rested for 3 days after each trip, but soon those 3 days became 2, and eventually I alternated between going and resting. I was still slow then, but I could manage to walk all the way to the gate on my own. Yay! Eventually it became 2 trips per 1 day for rest, then 3 trips per 1 day of rest. My family threw a huge celebration the day I finally went 5 days in a row without getting sick. You didn't mind, you went the whole week without resting for the first time. My little girl's all strong now, Daddy's proud. You'll be able to go to the forest soon, dear. My family's excitement encouraged me to push myself harder, but that led to me getting a fever that knocked me out for 2 days. Things wouldn't be that easy. It was 3 months after starting to go to the gate that I finally got permission to go to the forest. Signs of summer were beginning to show, marking the end of spring. Okay. I think that's going to be it, and I will see everybody next time.